All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast. And as you know, this is season 4, The Dynamics of Women. Beep, 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 beep. Y'all, and I'm really excited about my guest this evening, today, whenever you're watching in the morning. Appreciate y'all vibing out with LaRae Infinity over the last 4 seasons that we're in. Let's talk to men about it. Let's talk on the side. And those that also listen to my radio show, Stomping Ground, LaGina Rae, thank you for just rocking with me and the things that I'm doing. But before we dive into everything, I want my guests to introduce themselves and say who you are and all that good stuff.
All right. Hi, my name is Ana Rojas Bastidas. I am 40 years old. I'm a Pisces. And today I am feeling really grateful for the opportunity to share a story that you kind of feel like isn't that important and isn't significant. And thank you for my village for saying, hey, no, we do want to hear about it. So I'm feeling very, very grateful today. And you are listening to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast season 4. The dynamics of women.
The dynamics of women. And, that's been the ongoing season. So, how did I meet you? Like, it's so weird. When did we meet and
in
how
person or online? Because I feel like now, we were just talking about online and I don't know.
I don't know. I don't remember how we met. Maybe you know what? I think the first time I met you was the first event I went to in Houston, and it was a Kim Roxy event in 2019 with Grace. And I think she had just maybe with Michelle started Impact Hub. And Kim Roxy had an event. And what's crazy, that event was so dynamic and magical because I met one of my friends / mentors there, one of my business goal friends, Shahara, who was on season 2 of my podcast, and just so many people in that room. Like, that room was magic that day.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So that's where I met you.
I think so. That makes I was there. I do recall being there with JJ. Learning how to walk. So he was all over the place.
In 2019. And then I re-met you during COVID virtually in maybe different rooms that we were in. And then I think we've re-met several times. And then the last time was at Dean's.
Yes.
So not my nephew, y'all. Dean's, the bar down here in Houston. So
my baby was not with me at that time.
Not at that time. But it's Texas. We do what we want like that. So along with everything else. Whole nother loaded story. But I would say this, like the universe randomly just, I feel like kept like doing this with us. And I'm glad because I've always vibed out to you. There's things about you that I profoundly appreciate just in a human. But before we dive into Let's Talk for Real, I want to play a game. Let's talk. Let's talk. Hey, y'all. I just want to give you the heads up. There is definitely cursing, adult content, and there will be triggers in this episode as we look at and celebrate the journeys and the walks of women. Let's talk for real.
Okay, for real.
Let's talk for real. Again, this podcast, LaRae Infinity Let's Talk, is all about this sense of the more we're able to have open, honest conversations and celebrate women's journeys, whether it's left, right, up, or down, because there's no right way to be a human.
Correct.
The more we create these spaces of conversation, safety. I even go as far as thinking about like the research that is lacking in women of color, across so many diasporas and aspects. So I feel like forwarding conversation and celebrating journeys just for exactly what they are is important. And, this whole entirety of the podcast is focused on women and how they live and how they're growing, navigating the world and the impact they're giving, because we know that the rise of women and the conversation around women isn't just of loss, but it's triumph, it's failure, it's joy, it's pain. So when I think about that and everything in between, I enjoy sitting down and having these conversations. And when I thought about this season had to be the dynamics. Like, what are our dynamics and how does it go into it? So the first thing that I really want to dive in and ask you is just really like where you grew up, who you are, where did you come from?
Where did you go?
Where did you come from?
Wow. Okay. So I was born in Bogota, Colombia, and I spent some time living there until my parents decided that we were going to try to live the American dream. It was a very short-lived dream turned into a nightmare. My father died probably a year after we moved here. And my mom had to make the decision of stay or go. She had no support structure here. She did not speak the language. Highly educated woman. She was the first native-born commercial airline pilot in the U.S. in Colombia.
Okay.
Right? So she was not with her own accomplishments. But all of that changes when you move to another country. That's like, oh yeah, we don't care. You don't speak the language. You're already an idiot.
Yeah.
And so she decided to stay, which as a child, you're just like, go with the flow. This is what life is. It's until you become an adult that you're going, oh yeah, no, I would have definitely gone home. Like I would have been like, I tried, thanks, but this is not for me.
You?
I was 5.
You were 5.
I was 5 and my sister was 6.
Okay.
When all of this happened. And she would die if I actually shared this in the podcast. But I also feel this part is important. This uncensored, you got to be able to tell the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then there was an issue of immigration because at the time they were applying for a specific type of permit, and then through people taking advantage of immigrants, that status was ripped away from them. So now you have a person trying to navigate our very, very flawed immigration system.
Flawed, confusing.
Widowed, trying to raise 2 children in a country. I mean, just so much. And we made it work. And it was through our community that it allowed it to happen. I won't go into details, but it happened. And thankfully, she was able to kind of settle in and start working. But it just felt like life was constantly throwing punches at her. And I just saw her resilience because that's all she ever showed us. I think I saw her cry maybe like once. Whereas like now that I even talk about the first year of us being in this country, I would have been like a mess the entire time. Yeah. But it just was never that way, which is really, really positive. But now growing up later in life, it was no, you can't wallow. You gotta go. You gotta go. You gotta hustle. Like life is too short. Because then her sister passed away a year later. And it was just constantly go, go, go. You can't be negative. You got to think positive. You got to, think about the silver lining. There's always something positive to think about. And I'd be like, I'm sad. You can't be sad. You got to go, and that served me well in the sense that people, and then that's constantly being reinforced, right? Because it's like, okay, got a job at 15, excelled in high school, like went on to do this stuff. And it was just like, at some point, though, I started suffering because I had gotten into an emotionally abusive relationship that I did not recognize at the time. And I kept trying to explain that, to my, I was like, I don't feel right. Like, I don't feel my life's journey is going through the path that I wanted it to go to because I was just this dynamic personality my whole life.
Yeah.
And then like high school went away and then you go like get thrust into adulthood. Like, oh, you're 18 now. You know what to do with your life. And I was still with my partner. We got married, had children because that's what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And I was like, but this doesn't feel me.
Yeah.
But it's okay. But you're happy and you can always find something to be happy about. But
because
like that part
it stems from that 5-year-old self and seeing mom.
Yeah.
So let's go back because we fast forwarded. Let's rewind to the 5 years old to 15, right? Like, so you're new to the country, and obviously, at 5 years old, you already know how to talk.
Yeah,
your sister's a year older than you. Within the year of you being 5, your dad passed.
Yeah,
and then you said a year later, your aunt passed. There's no community, but a community enough to get this status, I guess, is what we're gonna call it. This bullshit taken care of, right?
Yeah.
And so in those 10 years before we get to high school, what was going on? You see your mom being resilient. The fact that you remember this means that this is a pivotal point in your life at 5 years old.
Yeah. I mean, it continued on. Like I said, life seemed normal for a while, but like we were all those also the latchkey kids. Like back in the day, we had the 2 phone numbers. So it would ring once if it was one number and twice if it was like your parent calling you.
Yeah,
Cause
yeah,
I was the
yeah.
only one you're allowed to answer, but you answered both,
Yes.
but then they called the one and I'm like, don't try to test me. I
Don't
know
try
I
to trick me,
failed,
motherfucker.
but okay. She's like, and that's why I did. So it was a lot of time spent alone between
Yeah.
my sister and I, and having to be very self-driven. She worked 3 jobs. There was no time to try to make every performance because I was a, dancer. So she would try to be there. And so it's just like, you just saw the work. You just saw the work and saw the work and you saw the work. So it was like, you got to work,
What kind of dance did you do?
Everything. I've always loved to move.
Okay.
So we had a lot of performing arts schools, which I'm very, very thankful for because there's no way my mom could have been able to afford
This
like a
was in
private
Houston?
studio.
Where'd you
No, this is Miami.
Okay, you started in Miami.
Yes. So we went from
Miami.
Clemency. We lived in Hialeah because of course, but then moved to Miami Gardens. And then middle school, financial hardships hit. Again, didn't understand it because she was always super positive.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only have 3 jobs for so long, right? And she had bought a hotel room as like an investment. I guess like timeshare. It wasn't a timeshare. Like she legit bought it. They were selling the rooms themselves.
The hotel room?
Yes, like you could buy the room.
Okay.
And so we moved into that room when I was 11 years old because she needed to rent out the house to try to like create like an income property.
Yep.
And so I lived in a hotel room with my sister and my mom from the time I was 11 to the time I was about 17.
Got it.
And so we had to move to Broward County. So we moved counties, we moved schools.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to keep us in school in Miami and we did it for the year, but it was a lot for her to try to do that. Yeah, oh no, like a standard, not a suite. People are like, sweet life in Cote, like life in Cote. And I was like,
yeah. You're like, no, a room.
Not a room,
4 walls.
double bed. We had to buy our own like mini fridge.
Mm-hmm.
So like I never experienced life with like a full fridge again until I was like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm. So from the time of 11 to 17, how much of that did you notice? Because I feel like in school, even being a military brat, right? Like as you're moving through, one of the interesting things that I ended up noticing was when we were in Alabama, all family members and family and people always just thought we were fine and great because my parents were married. So there must be 2 incomes and my mom's a military officer. So we must be banking and making all this money. But it wasn't like that. Like I always tell people, like I realized that my parents bought Flavor Aid versus Kool-Aid, right? Like, and then when I was in Alabama, I discovered this thing called welfare because I was in Girl Scouts and all the girls in the Girl Scout troops, their families were on welfare. And I think, they got the food stamps when they were still like paper. And we went to Winn-Dixie in the South. Winn-Dixie is the grocery store. And we had
Winn-Dixie's in Florida.
Yeah, Winn-Dixie. I'm not even going to go into that, sing the whole theme song. But we were there and everybody was like buying things, like candy and everything else. And I was like, I got like $2. And I was like, how's everybody, what is this?
Yeah, what is this extra?
Yeah, what is that? What do you, and then like they had J's on their feet and all this stuff. So I realized that like socioeconomic backgrounds, not knowing that's what it was at the time, vary and it's different. Right. So, but I started realizing different things. Like we may live in a house and I may have 2 parents, but these kids have this stuff. Right. What is this stuff?
Yeah.
So what was
how do you get this?
Yeah. Like what was your brain doing from 11 to 17 as you realized that you had a room, people had houses, apartments?
Right. So actually when I would tell people that I lived in a hotel, they actually thought we were rich.
I could see that.
Because they're like, you have a hotel? Does like a maid come and clean out? So they thought it was like living in a hotel. And I was like, well, I guess if you pay for them, they'll have you do that. So, but I really wasn't allowed to share a lot of my personal life because growing up, being an immigrant, not being legally documented at all times, my mom was very, very hesitant of the system, of anybody being aware of our situation. Yeah. So very few people even knew about like what was going on. And I remember not even being able to like leave the house very often to hang out with like my friends because she didn't want anybody, unless she could physically drop us off and pick us up, which was almost impossible because she was always working, because she didn't want anybody to drop them off and see that she wasn't home. or, just different things like that. So she was constantly worried about being reported and then as a result being deported.
Yeah.
Because there were times where she would have to, because she worked overnight. So she wouldn't come home at night, and we would get ourselves ready for school the next day, and we would get all of our stuff done and things like that. So when I did see her paycheck, I'm like, man, you're working so much. How are we not ballers?
Yeah.
Also, we traveled a lot because she worked for the airline industry. So we would be flying, like I flew to South Africa when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
But everybody loved my mom. So when we got there, we got upgraded to gold class. So I flew business class basically from, to South Africa at 9 years old.
Right.
I was in 4th grade. So the idea of money was very strange to me because she always managed it in a way that I'm like, okay, we're not living in a big house.
But we're in business class going to South Africa.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was part of her always looking for a way to do that, always looking for a way to like making it happen, even though you don't have it with cash.
Yeah. The bartering system.
And she did it so incredibly well. And that was that's why we're going to stay in this hotel room. Because I could buy us a house. I could get us an apartment, but then I can't do all this other stuff. So from that respect, I always appreciated, she told us everything. I saw her paychecks. I knew exactly how much money she made. Wow. I knew her bills. I knew when she went to the hospital, she didn't have insurance. So we knew of like her medical debts as well. She just basically told us everything all the time because she was like, it's only the 3 of us. Like, if you all don't know what's going on, I can't be helpful.
That's powerful.
To you. And yeah, so there was never like an ignorance of like our money. But I was like, oh yeah, no, we can't afford this trip on our own, but we're going because, mom worked for, the airline and she did a great job. And they are just basically saying like, whatever you need. And we were always well taken care of whenever we flew. So and we used to fly all the time. So it was super interesting. Yeah. With money. Cause you're like, I don't get it. We don't have any money, but
we're doing it.
Yeah. I was in Paris at 11 years old. We were in England when I was 15, 16 years old. We flew to Colombia all the time to visit family and stay with family. Yeah.
So you have from a young age experienced the life of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Before, you already had the experience of it. Because that's what entrepreneurialism is. I always find it very entertaining when people think that I've got it or entrepreneurs in general got it just because we're randomly happy. No, It's not that we have money. It's more about the fact that like you figure it out and you barter with people and you get this blessing of being around so many people with so many different types of talents. You're like, okay, look, you do this. I'm going to do this. We're going to get this. Then we're going to go here. And we got this.
Yeah.
And then we can do this.
You got these. You just get all these like random opportunities. And you're like, yes. Okay, sounds cool. Yeah. My husband all the time. He was like, "How did you?" I'm like, "I don't know. I met this person and I know this person, so I'm doing this."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So yeah, she definitely instilled that in us.
And the go. So there's always
so
the two sides of that coin, right? Because we talk about women and resiliency and bouncing back and pushing on and the things. But as, we grow as a society, as the earth evolves and all this stuff, we also realize how unhealthy that can be.
Yeah.
And when we get to our 15-year-old self in high school, now dive into that and talk about the 15-year-old self in this relationship that you may not have realized was unhealthy. And even as you were talking about that part of it, I was thinking, because she's learned and been told and observed to make it work, right? So
yeah, that whatever your situation is, you can make something work of it. And it's you, like you can control it basically. Yeah. So there was a lot of self-discipline, self-control, things like that. But then you become a very big people pleaser because you're constantly helping other people. You're constantly looking of opportunities. So, you can't ever turn it off.
Yeah.
And definitely one of the things I realized at 15, 16, I started doing like my own thing. And I'm like, cool, what are you going to do now?
With him?
With my mom.
With your mother?
I'm like, okay, like now we're doing like I specifically remember one Christmas, my sister wanted to go to Puerto Rico with her then boyfriend. I wanted to then go home. And for me, home was still Colombia.
16, yep.
So I was like, well, I want to go to Columbia. And she's like, all right, I'll stay here. And so we did. The three of us, we spent, she's like, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. So she never even got selfish with it to say, but I want my girls home for Christmas. It was just always like, okay, give out, give out, give out. And she just was never selfish, which is, it sounds like a really beautiful thing. But I'm like,
you should have been
oh my
selfish.
gosh, like, if my kids right now weren't going to spend Christmas with me, I'd be like, yeah, no, you can go afterwards. I'll send you, whatever. But then I'm like, what did you do? Did you work? Did you have any friends? Did you hang out with anybody? Or did you just kind of like sit at home and make the best of it?
Was it your thought process, or have you ever asked her? Have you ever asked her, like, what did you do that Christmas or whatever?
I don't know. I don't think she would tell me the truth.
Wow.
I don't think she would, because nothing could be sad. Nothing can be negative. So even when I expressed to her, I feel, sad, or I feel, this and that, it was just like, okay, well, delete that thought. She was very big on visuals. We had to meditate a lot as children, the Sylvan learning method, like picture your future, like
all that,
things like that. And she was like, well, delete that and then enter like what you want. And I was like, so there was no time to process feelings. There was no time it was just like, okay, find the solution then. Fine. There's a problem, find the solution. Even if it was just within you.
Yeah.
In your own thought processes, in your own perception of the situation.
Change your perception.
Just change your perception and you're all good. But I'm like, at some point, I'm like, okay, I think we're just living in a fantasy now because this isn't the reality
of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like, it is on fire.
Yeah, that can suck. That could suck really, really hard and really bad.
Yeah.
And make me sad. And realize, but it's not going to be forever. And that's okay. And so sometimes, especially as I got older, I'd have to say, Mommy, I don't want a solution. I just need your support. It's okay. Like, I don't need you. You can just be my mom.
Yeah.
And I don't think she ever felt she could just be that, because she was a single mom. So she had to be everything. And she wanted to save us from, ourselves, I guess. And so it's a lot of trauma she had experienced in her childhood that she never processed. So I didn't get to process it. So nobody was going to process it, which then got me into probably the worst scenario of my life, because I did not recognize the things that I was completely stepping into because I was living in this fantasy, until I was just such a shell of a person, because I had spent all that time honing in my skill of just seeing the best in things and seeing the positive and seeing the bright side.
In this relationship with this dude.
Yes.
In high school. So were you still dancing?
I was, and I loved it.
You were dancing. Were you on dance team, or was this private dance? What were you doing?
It was still in high school. We had the performing arts went all the way through high school. I got a scholarship to go dance at a university far, far away. Lived my dream, got into a lot of different, I did excellent. I was just this go-getter. I was going to do and be all these things. And then this relationship was but I'm going to miss you. And you can do that here. And, we could be great together. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. I can be great anywhere. I don't have to do that. I don't have to go away to do that. And it's just this the slow breakdown that afterwards I'd be like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, who are you to tell me not to go live my dream? I got a scholarship to go dance. That was such again, realizing it now, but not then, that was actually a really big deal. And especially, for somebody who was not the typical body shape. I mean, my mom also gave me an exercise machine at 13 because I was a size 6 and considered extra large in the dance community. So yeah, my weight was always, and my body was always center of attention.
Conversation.
Yes, because it's oh, you did beautiful, but you were the biggest girl, so everyone was looking at you because of that,
and not because my turnout is fucking perfect.
Yeah, not because I was graceful, not because I have amazing musicality, not because I own the stage. No, it was because it's easy. Obviously, everyone's gonna look at you because look at your body. Girl. Yeah, you have the big boobs, and I'm like,
it is size 6.
Yes.
God, the unhealthy things that are just naturally cast upon us. And some of it's by mistake, right? It's by design and the comments and the ideas behind it. So, okay, unhealthy relationship starts at 15. And when you say that, it's funny because I remember being in high school, and I got a full ride, a double scholarship to a community college in Tuscaloosa, Alabama to play softball. I was so excited because I had only played varsity 1 year and I had only been playing softball for like 2 years. I technically still didn't even know.
You're like, I'm a protege.
Yeah, like I get this shit. Like I just naturally, I didn't really know how to hit, but I would hit. I didn't know how to catch, but I'd catch the ball. Like everything was still a learning process, but I got this scholarship. I called my boyfriend at the time. I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, look at, and he goes, you're not going, right? Or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going, of course. And he's like, well, you can either stay here with me or go there because I don't trust it. And I'm like, what? You don't trust me? And he's like, no, I don't trust those guys out there. And And I was like, and you know, mind you, I'm in love. I'm so in love. But also it was like, wait, what? Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going. But
Yeah.
I remember that being like my first real heartbreak. Like I felt my heart break. And it's weird because when you talk about those words, like what is heartbreak? I think your heart can only originally break once. And that was the heartbreak. And I don't think it was around him.
Yeah.
I think it was around the fact that experience. Because I was like, oh, it's breaking. And I cried for like a whole week on the couch, but it just wasn't an option not to go, especially with my sister at my clit. I don't want to say nuts. She was at me and I got a clit. So anyway, so when I think about that, so you didn't go, you stayed in Miami. How old are you at this point?
So that was my senior year.
Your senior year, so 17.
17, yeah.
17, 18. What do you do?
I just started making as many people happy as possible. And I just like dove right into, like my world began revolving around him and what I thought people wanted me to do, what I thought would make my mom happy. You know, she wanted me to graduate from college. So, all right, let's go to college.
What'd you go for?
I ended up getting an AA in sociology and a BS in psychology.
Did you keep dancing at least?
I did not.
So you said no to scholarship and you stopped dancing at the same time.
I started working because I needed to start making money.
Damn.
Yeah. So then I started making money and I started working and ironically moved up though. But I remained ambitious, but then like in a small, very small sense. So if
big fish, small pond.
Very, very tiny pond. Not even like I didn't even get a pond. I got like a puddle somewhere.
Splash.
But I just started trying to then be the best at like whatever I was doing, even though what I was allowed to do was very limited. And again, you don't realize how controlling it is. Well, I missed you. Like I wanted to spend time with you. So like the friendships that I had just sort of dwindled away. And then the world became very narrow because then it was just like just our church friends and then just family and then just, you know, just kind of all this stuff.
And are all the signs, those are all the signs of like this abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Isolate. Manipulate. Like, okay.
Yeah, control of like the money, the thing. And then you naturally have children. So I was like, I loved being a mom, but I was now the one working 2 jobs because I had the career, I had the job, I had the education so I could make more money. So I was working, but I was working 2 jobs.
How old were you when you had your first kid?
23.
23. So, but this is the same guy from 15.
Yeah, well, we've known each other since 15, but then we didn't start dating until 17. But yeah, the groundwork was being laid, so to speak. And there was a 4-year age gap, right? So like older. So there's a lot of things.
He was 18 when you were 15? Okay. Yeah.
But then went away. Stayed connected with his family though. So when he came back,
the tie was there.
Yeah. And there's more. There's so much more. But I don't even like to highlight that because I'm like, I don't even want to talk about you.
It's part of your journey, but you don't want to highlight that motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's how
exactly.
I feel
I'm
about
like,
sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
You're going to get a footnote, but you're not getting a whole chapter.
Like you get a footnote so I can reference what I did better. But Anne, I don't want to, this is not your feature, motherfucker.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Exactly. So when I finally started, when a friend of mine came back to visit, because a lot of my friends went away to college and came back, she's like, are you okay? And nobody had asked me. I was 25 years old and nobody had just been like, are you okay? She's like, you're working 2 jobs. This is not you. This is not like this grand personality that we've always known that was always like just doing stuff and And I said, I don't think so. But she was the first person to even ask. You know, my mom was like, well, you have kids and, you know, you can work it out and you can do this and you can do that.
The positive.
Because I couldn't even pinpoint what was wrong.
Yeah.
I couldn't pinpoint it. I had friends of mine. So I was working gun shows for extra money. That was my second job. I'd work during the week and
Florida
then travel.
was a perfect place to do that,
Bro,
too.
it's so strange. And so I worked with a lot of police officers. So believe it or not, it was a situation. They worked with me for years, and they're like, all right, Anna, we finally got to say something to you. They're like, we have watched your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We're concerned for you. And these are police officers, right?
Yeah.
Women, older,
yeah.
Whom I trust. And they're like, we're gonna tell you a couple things we've observed. This is what we've done. And what did it for me was they're like, okay, we're gonna just do this thing for us. And I said, okay, like, what is it? She's like, here's the situation as we see it. We need you to call your parents to tell them you're okay. But then we need you to tell him, like, you're turning in for the night, that you're not having this conversation anymore, like, whatever is going on. Because I guess they could tell, like, when something was happening.
Yeah.
And, but we need you to call your parents first and your sister, anybody else who you think he might call, that you're okay. And I was like, why would I tell them? Like, nobody cares. That's nobody's business. It's my business.
Right.
And they're like, just trust.
Do this.
So I called them and I was like, hey, I'm back at the hotel room. We're going to bed. Like I told my parents, you know? And then I said the same thing to him.
Wait, were y'all traveling?
I was. He stayed home with the kids.
Okay, you were traveling. You're telling, okay.
So something is going on back home that, of course, only ever happens when I'm not home. Situation's getting dramatic and I'm being pulled into it even though I'm not even physically there.
Got it.
Right? It's just this constant tether like, hey, I'm going to make sure that
manipulation.
I can always...
You can't have fun, all this thing.
Yes. No.
Do you need
even
more
though
wine?
I'm working. Probably.
Okay, got you.
And sure enough, my dad shot me a text. He's like, hey, just letting you know, he did call. We told him you were at the hotel and that you were fine and that you were just turning in for the night. Yeah. My mom remarried.
Like, I was like, this is magic. Let's go back.
My life has included so many different things. Yeah, she remarried. Awesome man, whom I refer to as my dad.
Yeah.
And he was like, just letting you know, he did call. And I was like, holy shit. They nailed it. They nailed exactly what he was going to do, how he was going to do it. And I was like, okay, like, what are the next steps? Like, what is actually going on in my life? Like, what is happening to me? Because I can't figure out what it is. And they're like, you're being abused. And I was like, no, you know, I'm too smart. Yeah. I'm too bubbly. I'm too like, it just didn't make sense. And they're like, but it was irrefutable. Like they literally were like, here's exactly what an abusive person is going to do. So we're just going to take you through the steps of what an evening is in a person's life, essentially, right? Without telling me that's what they were doing. They did it. And I was like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So then I started changing my behavior, you know? And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go for that run. I am going to go hang out with my friends. I am going to do the thing. And it was just like, the reactions. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am. And I started seeing a therapist. Light switch. Yeah, I started seeing a therapist like in secret because once he found out, he showed up to the therapist's office and was like, I need to say something to her. And
to let her know.
Yeah, like that really. And I'm just like, this is really bad. And I've actually been in this for like a really long time, but I didn't know how to tell people. I didn't know how to, it was just like such a tight, so I just like, we got into something and then the next day, like he packed my lunch for me. And I distinctly remember that this was the event that finally was like, it was a Thursday afternoon. He packed a lunch for me, like with a beautiful note of like love and tenderness. And I'm going to do better and I'm going to try better. And I called my best friend crying at work. And I was like, I need someone to meet me at the house. Cause I'm going to tell him I don't know what to do, but I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I got home and she's like, I am not getting involved in your stuff. She's like, but like, let me know if you need something. I don't know. You don't know how to do this stuff. Like nobody tells you like, hey, here's the manual to like tell someone
to break up with an abusive person.
Yeah. And I was like, you gotta leave. I think that's even actually what I said. Like, you can't stay here anymore. You gotta go. And I didn't say because you were abusive. I gave no explanation.
You just stated you've got to leave.
Gotta go.
So that was it. So the house is in your name?
It was in both of our names, but I was the one paying for everything.
Got it.
And it was just so many things
in between. Was he working?
Yeah, no. I say yeah, no, because the answer was no, but then would pick up odd jobs that I didn't know about until other people would tell me. And I'm like,
have the money from it.
yeah, but I never saw the money
Wow,
for it.
this is like ticking, like
Oh,
the
every
whole
single box,
thing.
yeah.
Like,
While I was gone, our camera broke. I need to. Yes, he was sick, and all of it. I said, I'm not paying for your stuff anymore. Oh, okay, so you don't want me to be able to buy my medicine. You want me to die. And I'm like, no, that's not it. But like, if you don't make your money, like that's on you. He went hard.
Married? Were y'all married?
Still, yeah, at the time. At that point.
Okay, y'all, when did y'all get married?
21. I was 21.
You were 21. And y'all started dating at?
I was 17.
You're 17. So you waited a while to get married.
Yeah.
No signs were in there. You never felt yourself disappearing.
Oh yeah, no, probably. But it was,
progressive and slow.
Very slow.
That Novocaine
very, very
effect.
slow. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to jump a little bit because I know that you have mentioned a couple times about body image, right?
Oh yeah.
And especially being a dancer, especially in the community. But shit, now you're you. How do you feel about your body now?
What a fucking disaster. So like I got stretch marks and I got like loose skin. I had to have an emergency surgery with my daughter. So I have this like huge scar.
Yeah.
And I'm 24 and I'm like, I'm wrecked. I'm wrecked financially. I am wrecked like physically. I am wrecked emotionally. I like what do I like? How can my life already be over at 24 years old? 25.
Like,
sorry, excuse 25.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, but who like this isn't me though. Like this isn't me. And so it was one day my daughter had walked in. This was while we were separated, I think. And I was like, I had bought myself a bikini. I don't know what I was like, but I had it in my drawer and I was just trying it on. And she walked in and she's like, and she's a petite little thing. And she goes, Mommy, when I grow up, I can't wait to have a tummy like yours.
Okay.
And I was like, look,
yeah.
Oh, for all the podcast people, I'm tearing up. And in that moment, I had a choice to make.
Yeah.
I could either look at her in the face and say, no, you don't. And start her cycle, right? So I just said, thank you. And then she just does that cute little thing where they touch. They're always touching. She's like, it's jelly. And then she said it's weird. She was like, I want to eat it. And I'm like, you're so weird. She's 3 years old. So it's just like, why? Why would I do that to her? Even if I have kind of like with the vegetable thing.
Yeah.
I may hate them, but I want to do better. I want to do better. And that was it. That was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, yeah, I'm 20. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm never going to be able to date again. Maybe no one's ever going to find me attractive again. And maybe. But I owe it to my kids to at least try.
Yeah.
I owe it to them to say, you do have control. You do have control of this situation, but I'm going to let it suck for a while. And I'm not going to rush into something and I'm not going to be like, oh, everything's great. Mommy's perfect. Like, da-da-da-da-da. Like, you're going to watch me struggle and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it sounds like and feels like you took your mother's mentality, but amplified it by not, because that could have been a negative moment and it could have continued the size 6 theory of fatness.
Yeah.
Or you're like, okay, this is positive. Thank you. Even though you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, you stupid little 3-year-old ignorant.
Like, this is not magazine-worthy body.
Right.
But, like, your kid comes in and is like, ooh.
But 3-year-olds know the truth. They don't speak anything else. So I said, who did decide then? If you say that it's something worth wanting, who decided that it's not? And who decided that I wasn't allowed to wear it? I said, who's going to, just really kind of like that floodgate of, well, then, okay, if I show up to the beach, is someone like checking people? Is someone like, they let me buy it? Nobody asked me to like look at what I look like in the trying room. Right?
They own it.
And yeah. And that just realizing, and I think I also realized like in that moment in my life that not everybody wants to see you succeed. And it is hard to know that there's going to be people out there that literally just want to tear you down for no good reason.
Yeah.
And that it's not on you. Because that people pleaser in me, right? I could okay, let's go to therapy. We've already gone to 3 therapists, by the way, but let's find
In
another
25?
one. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go to another one. Let's work really hard. Let's try to make this marriage work. Let's try to do this. And you know what? No, I'm not doing that anymore because now I have things that I need to work on.
Right.
And
you're now cognizant that
been
there's a
trying to-
daughter paying attention.
yeah, like paying a lot more attention than I realized. And I said, I'm not raising them in this environment. I'm not raising them to
You had more than one kid
watch-
at this point?
She was my second, so I had 2.
Okay, two at this point.
But
25.
boys, they're not so observant. Not so much on the observant side. So, and I wasn't planning on accelerating anything, but it was like, well, are we going to do this divorce thing? Or I said, okay. Or are you going to change your name on Facebook? Or are you going to keep it? Okay, I'll change it.
That's what he's asking you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Hoping that in my people pleaser response of, no, we're going to figure it out. Like, no. And I said, you know what? Okay, let's call all the bluffs. Let's do it all. Okay. Oh, you want me to change my name? No problem. During the divorce, are you keeping your last name? I said, I was gonna. I don't really need to change my kids, my name to like not match my kids. Well, I thought you would change, but you're right. I'll change it back. No worries. No big deal. Oh, what do you want? Oh, okay. You want that? Oh, I have to pay you child support? Okay.
You paid him child support?
I did.
Okay.
That's fine. Because then I was able to focus. And within a year, I had like doubled my income. I had paid all my debts off. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. Ran my first half marathon. Like by the time I was 30, I just let that go and just like accelerated into me. And all stemming from that one moment, because we don't think about body positivity from that perspective of like how it literally impacts everything. Because we don't even realize it until you see the advertisements. It's like run, but you got to already have a perfect body to run. You already have to be in perfect health to run. You already have to have a 6-pack in order to go to the beach. You already have to have all these things. In order to feel confident, you can't have anything like bulging. It's in everything.
Yeah.
It's in absolutely everything. You have to look the part.
Yeah.
And I said, no. Let's pretend those rules don't exist. Because that's what I kept saying to myself. I became a little rebellious against the rules. And I was like, I'll do until somebody stops me. Once somebody stops me, once somebody can actually stop me, I'll stop.
Interesting. Because you're not breaking any laws.
No,
you're breaking societal norms, which is
we're very fast to say them. You're not allowed. Society says, okay, well then society's gonna have to come at me.
Yeah,
society's gonna literally have to knock on my door and be like, cease and desist what you're doing. Even when we started on Instagram, I said, you know what? I told my then boyfriend, I said, I want to start a blog. People are doing this Instagram thing. I want to share pictures of myself in a bikini on the internet.
How old were you at this point?
30.
30. Okay.
30, divorced, newly married, newly in a new, healthy relationship. And I said, I want to share pictures of myself in a bikini on the internet because I really think that's going to help people. When you think about it that way, you're like, that's the most bizarre statement you could possibly make. I said, but I think that's going to be very helpful.
Yeah. To other people. To share yourself in a bikini.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Not words, but like pictures.
Just pictures, visualization.
Yes.
And so you started with IG.
Yes. And he was like, go for it. And I'm like, so you're not mad that I'm going to put pictures of myself on the internet in a bikini.
Yeah.
And he's like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I don't get it. But okay, like if it makes you happy. The trajectory of my life changed completely. Not money-wise. Let's talk about that like straight out the gate. Not money-wise. Opportunity-wise, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Living the life, going back to that bartering system of being able to do really cool shit because you started connecting with people, you started helping people, you started helping other people recognize the issues that they were dealing with and saying, oh, look, I used to have to deal with those issues.
Yeah.
Just talking about the things that nobody wanted to talk about and how I overcame them.
Yeah.
Or how I worked on them, how I acknowledged them, that they even existed in the first place, right? Because how much do we even go through life like just pretending like it doesn't even exist?
Yeah.
Nope, this isn't a problem. This isn't a thing. It's not actually happening. Instead of saying, yeah, you didn't go sleep with that person even though you really wanted to because you thought that they would think that your like stretch marks were ugly.
Ooh.
Like, let's just say that's the truth.
You missed
a great one-night stand.
Maybe because, we could go in the tangent about, I guess a good question to ask you in this moment as we're talking about it. And it's one that it can go down this rabbit hole, but do you consider yourself like a sexually enlightened human?
1,000% yes.
How, why, when did it hit? You know?
When did it hit? Probably when I was like in middle school. Physical touch is something I've always enjoyed. Whether it is a hug or something more intimate. And I never really quite understood why we deny, or why we were always told to deny those impulses. You don't have to act on the impulse. And I think that's like the big thing. But why do we deny that we even have the impulse in the first place?
This part.
Sometimes I want to slap somebody in the face.
Doesn't
That's
mean
okay
I
to
do
say,
it.
but I don't. But some people deserve like a throat punch. I don't throw it, but I can think it. And that's okay to say. But if you say, damn, that person's really hot.
Wanna fuck?
Yeah, like, oh, kind of want to see like what that would be like. And people are like, that's inappropriate. But why? I can say it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So when I went into like my single life, I was like, oh yeah, no, as long as I'm safe, I'm not denying myself anything. And so I said, until I get into a situation where someone literally is like, ugh, I didn't know that that's what you were working with. You know, I didn't know you had stretch marks and scars and all that other stuff. That like never happened. And of course, I always have people are like, well, of course, because men will sleep with anybody. Da 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 da. That's not true. Like,
it's not true.
Don't do that.
Don't do that to yourself.
Yes,
my
exactly.
Pussy by like that. But that is a thing too. It's very interesting when you talk about like even this idea around sexually enlightened or just being comfortable with yourself or whatever. Like I had this conversation with a friend, and I've had it with a sexual partner before and everything else. Like, ooh, that's freak. You're a freak. I'm like, why am I considered a freak for just knowing exactly what I like or what I want to try or the things that, again, like I'm interested in learning about that, but half of it's because I'm a geek, not because I'll do it. Like that DDBDSM slap stuff. Like I like knowing about it and knowing that that's a world that people get into and explore. It's not for me. Right. But I like knowing about it.
Yeah. So my whole thing is, sort of you're denying pieces of yourself that you don't know how it connects you to other people, that you don't know how it connects you to the universe sort of like around you, right? And not making it weird because it doesn't have to be weird. Like I can say, it's like this funny thing on the internet, like if people don't think you and your girlfriends are gay, then are you even best friends? And I had a lot of people who used to think I was gay a lot.
Yeah, same.
Like a lot because I was always the one.
I tried.
I'll experiment.
I tried with chicks. And I was just like, we need some dicks in it. And they'd be like, I hate chicks that like dicks that try to play with clits. And I'm like...
You really sat down and came up with that and you're proud of yourself, put on a logo. But why? Why can't I say, you know what? But women are really great to make out with or fondle. I don't know. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Why is that a big deal? Why deny that? And is it all? No. That's like saying you're attracted to all men. Are you? No. Are you attracted to all women? No. And so it's just like, and again, do you have to act on that impulse? No. Because that's a choice that you make between yourself and your partner. We're partners.
Whatever you're doing.
But it's just this constant need for control. But I question always, like, who does the control benefit?
Yeah.
Who benefits from me not having this conversation? Who benefits from me feeling the way I feel about myself and how I engage with others? And it's never me. It's never even women at large. It's like some very specific high-paid CEOs that have curated these conversations over time that just are embedded thoughts that we believe are beliefs and that are not. Because you just follow the money trail. You follow those things and you're like, who benefits from this?
And also, but even in that conversation, who also buys into it. And it's more people than we like to believe and everything else, because I always talk about having the great friendships that are the gay world and mostly gay men. And just, I talk about the honesty and autonomy that the gay people that I know operate in sexually. It may be not somebody's forte or maybe not, but the people that I know have the ability to be honest
Mm-hmm.
about their sex, their sexuality, their sex life, whether it was a journey or they just were like, fuck this is me.
Yeah.
And coming back out into like hetero world, I always talk about the fact that most hetero women are like really boring
Mm-hmm.
and square and almost I don't have a good word for it, but prudish about sex and sexuality. And some of it comes from societal norms.
Yeah.
So even buying into that stuff, right? Because I always talk about like, I'm Black, millennial, and I'm a hetero enough woman. Because, you know, it skews like I have laid with the woman. I'm not sure I did it right. To be honest, I don't know. I feel, and my competitive nature is like, I need to go back and do that to conquer the dragon.
I can do better now.
Right,
Hold
I
on
can
one
do better.
second. One second.
I
I
think
need
I
to do over.
understand this, but it's not even like this whole sense of like I must be a lesbian, but like something in me, and you know, I always talk about young ladies should all play sports at some point, but my competitive nature is like super wild. And it doesn't always have to be me going toe to toe, because I really do believe people are like, you know, collaboration over competitiveness. And I'm like, fuck that. I want to compete with all of my friends. We want to be like, I only know I can be the best if I'm around people that are competitive and the best.
But you're uplifting them at the same time. You're not trying to destroy your friends.
Yeah.
You're just, you know, trying to make sure you know who's on top.
And not destroy. And then you can always collaborate. Because I'm like, okay, yeah, I know you're my number two. Like, we need to collaborate on this. And they're like, bitch, I'm the number one. You're number two.
Yeah.
And it goes on.
You caught me on an off day.
Yeah. So it's okay. So
but that goes back to that communication piece.
It goes back, but that's
that acknowledgement. Are you even allowed to acknowledge it? That from your youth, if you were never even allowed to acknowledge feelings, emotions. Like my daughter, I had to tell her the other day, I said, girl, you know you're allowed to make out with people and not date them, right? You don't have to have just because you want to make out with someone doesn't mean you have to make them your boyfriend. I said, it's okay. Because she gets herself into relationships and I'm just like, you're 15. Like, why? I said, don't you kind of just like want to like give them a hug sometimes or hold their hands or make out with them or whatever?
Yeah.
You don't have to be in a relationship in order for you to be able to do that. And that's okay.
Was it like a profound moment, or was she like, I know, Mom?
No, she thought about it. Because a lot of times you hear a lot of, oh, they're going to be so cute when they get married. And I was like, no, no. I want her to live a long, long life. If this happens to be the person that she truly feels she could be monogamous with for like the rest of her life, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But it's just this, well, in order to do this, you have to be in this status.
The order of operation.
Yes.
It's fake.
Exactly.
Would you rather
I said the same thing to my son as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like just go out there and explore. Would you rather be crazy rich, however you define it, money-wise? We're not talking about feelings of richness, but crazy rich, cash money, or deeply in love?
Like with another person?
Yeah.
One person? I sound so polyamorous right now.
I don't know. You tell me. It's just the question.
No, probably crazy rich.
Why?
So I just feel like one puts the other person at the center of your happiness. And I don't ever think I can ever put, because I don't think that is healthy. I don't think that this concept of being so madly infatuated with someone that your world becomes complete makes your world complete.
Yeah. I love talking about, I love being in love. But the thing I love over love is loyalty. And I think that loyalty comes from this place of having the ability to place somebody at the center with you, but you always be the nucleus of it. Like, I feel like I'm a loyal person because that's what I want done to me.
I also think that the way people talk about love is super interesting. So my husband's like a super, super like intro,
gushy.
No, not gushy.
Oh, really?
Not gushy in the slightest. But when you talk about loyalty, ride or die, like whatever. He can be mad at me the entire time too that he's doing it. He'll hate like whatever it is that I'm doing.
Cutting
but
for you.
He will do it.
Yeah.
He'll not understand it, but he'll be there. And I think that we don't, especially in the world that I want to be able to do and have nice things, because if I don't, then I'm not able to be present, and money allows you to be present, and money allows you to do a lot of things. And yeah, it's not, I think when people think of love, they think of romance, but it's not romance. You can romance yourself.
Yeah.
You change over time, so love is about that dedication, about saying, okay, maybe I don't like you right now. I don't like my kids all the time. I tell them all the time, you're 15, you suck. You smell.
Yeah.
You suck and you smell.
Yeah.
But I love you. Even though they probably don't think that at the moment when I tell them, like, no, you can't skip school because your grades suck. But I love you. You know what I'm saying?
But I love you. So what's something that you feel like you have fabulously failed at? Like I like to call it my wrecking ball moments. Like, I know that I'm about to do this thing and it's going to be a failure, but I'm going to learn. It's going to be fabulous. Because I think we shy away from that word of failure. Again, the society norms, you cannot fail. And I'm like, but you should, you can. And it's not always like these people are like, take your failures and turn them into flour, all that bullshit. Sometimes you just fail.
Yeah.
For me. So what's something you fabulously failed at?
I think I really fabulously failed at just recognizing that really shitty situation that I was in, because I was in it for almost 10 years.
Decade of your life.
Just consider, and even though it's been more than 10 years since then, you're just like, fuck, if I had just seen it, I would have gone to dance. I would have joined the circus. I would have studied, some ancient tribe in the Himalayas. Like, I would have not wasted that time.
Yeah.
And it still just makes me mad that I failed to see that. But I'm also still kind of like mad at people around me to be like, why didn't you fight harder for me? Because as soon as I told some people, they're like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but
couldn't you have started a petition? I don't know.
There's always the two sides, right? Because it's like I always talk about Ludacris, but like, you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. Hoes don't act right. And then there's another song, Don't Save Her. She don't want to be saved.
Yeah.
All these things. Because if somebody is not ready, you create more of a hostile situation.
Yeah.
And also, I have found that sometimes in toxic relationships, if I stand up and tell you, and then you're like, well, LaGina told me this, that, and then he isolates you. She isolates you from the person that said something. And so even when I think about this, because I try to operate from this position of no regret, even in the fuck moments where I'm like, fuck, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, I don't hear your story the same if that 10 years didn't happen.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It would have just been a different story. I think that I would have come into myself with a little bit more self-confidence, because that self-confidence, you can't ever get it back. And I really hate when people are like, I'm such a self-confident person. I'm a self-aware person. I'm aware that I am resilient. I'm aware that like I'm a problem solver, but that doesn't mean I go into every situation going, I am going to rock the shit out of this and everyone is going to just sing my praises.
Yeah.
Like, no. Those situations allow us to see how resilient we can be. But I also call a lot of bullshit on celebrating that resilience constantly, because then that puts us in a situation of applause. I was like, no. Can you please just help me? Moments. I don't need you to be like, oh my God, you're so resilient. Yeah, but you just made my life 10 times more difficult if you had just said something or helped, or like celebrating that hustle life. And when we go into entrepreneurship, oh, the hustle. Yeah, but if you only are funding so many women and, oh, they found a way, you don't get to applaud. I don't want your applause. That's what gets to that point of, I don't want your applause. I don't want you seeing what I was going through, who didn't help me, even in like, okay, let's distract her for the day. Like, I had girlfriends that I know did that for a fact.
Yeah.
Girl, let's go get a pedicure. And really, they were just trying to like help me feel like a human being, right? That was their way of helping me at the time. It's like, you don't then I don't want your applause.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people kind of come in and they're just like, applause, applause. And I was like, no. Cause I guess that's where I am. I was getting so much applause at that time. I was getting applause at that time too. Look at you working 2 jobs. Look at you, like, still staying with your husband. Look at you, doing this and rewarding so much of this behavior.
In hindsight, you're like, it's interesting because I have been the friend. I've lost friends, even very recently within like the last 2 or 3 years. I've lost friends for being the person that says something.
Yeah.
And, it's even been like, well, you're not a parent or you're not in relationships. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not in those because I see all of what y'all are going through.
Yeah.
And it's like a cautionary tale to me over time. But I think about it and like in my head as I'm talking, there's like 3 women and a man that have all been part of this. Like LaGina said the thing, but in this lifetime, I refuse not to be that person. So if we're not going to be friends, but you have the truth,
right?
And you also know that again, that loyalty thing. I don't care. I don't give a shit if you're mad at me or if we don't talk for 5 years.
Yeah.
I will come.
Yeah.
I will go. I will do. And I think that that's so powerful. Okay. So in that, what is something that you've seen or witnessed or been a part of that you often don't talk about or don't like to talk about or skip over in the narrative?
For a long time, it was actually my ex-husband.
Yeah.
I skipped over it a lot.
Ashamed or just you didn't want him to have
I just didn't want him to have any of that. Or for people to, but that's the impact that someone can have on your life for a very long period of time. And for a long time, because my children, I didn't want them to hear the story until they were ready to understand the story. So it wasn't until last year, and that's actually why I'm actually being able to talk about, because I actually did have to sit them down and say, okay, you are now coming of age where the manipulation can now begin on you.
Oh, yep.
And I need you to know that this is the actual story of like why we actually got divorced, why we are no longer together, why I still see this pattern of behavior, and why I feel I need to tell you now.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you getting sucked into this cycle of abuse, because one would hope that you wouldn't do that to their child, but one would also hope they wouldn't do it to the person whom they claim that they would love for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was finally able to say that, and in saying it, I was like, then I could start sharing it more with other people, because that control remained there for a while, which was really wild. And then some things that I just still worry about what people would think about me if they knew like the whole story. That sounds like such a world. This is the real world, and your real world road rules.
I love that.
And it's hard to play it out and how it's going to play out in your mind, because I feel like a professional woman can't talk about certain things, because if anybody finds out, then they'll no longer be seen as a professional. If you're a mom, you can't talk about certain things, because if that's found out, then
You're
how
not
good of a mom.
Yeah.
You can't talk. It's just like so much has to be curated that you just don't quite know what you're allowed to talk about. As I get into my 40s, as I'm in my 40s, it becomes like, oh, shoot. But the more I talk about it, the more opportunities I've gotten, And so I feel like I've actually talked about quite a bit. I feel like I'm definitely one of those people that are like, wow, you really put all that out there, huh? Like you just don't leave anything out. And I was like, shockingly enough, there is stuff that
you leave out.
I leave out that I'm still going to leave out. And maybe when my mom passes away, or like I'll ghost write, I'll be like, oh, actually, there's this whole thing going on. Because I just,
And it's one of those things I always talk about, even being camera facing and all that kind of stuff. Like people are like, oh, well, you're an open book. I don't believe in the open book theory, because everybody has chapters that are unwritten or in invisible ink or that are just glued shut. And this positive disruptor, this energy where you tell a lot of stuff, it's just the stuff that you have now made yourself comfortable and able to tell, even if it's not a societal norm. So right now, where you are as a human, what do you want to clearly, like if you're just talking to people and people are like, oh, you're so, what do you want people to know about you?
That I am literally just another human being. And with the rise of social media, which is something we've never experienced before in our lifetime, I think we forget that. We've never experienced this sort of sharing in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Nobody has. And everyone is still trying to figure it out. And people are trying to figure out the long-term ramifications of it. So you have to just see each other for their humanity. Because you're seeing people in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 60s. And sometimes we don't get that grace because it's like, well, 10 years ago, and I have it documented, you said on February 23rd that da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay, but that was 10 years, ago. That makes me a human being.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me a personality. It doesn't make me a brand. It doesn't make me untouchable. It means I've decided to share my story in a way that some people don't, and that they don't like that. I've decided to live my life in a way that some people don't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me better. It doesn't make me more. It doesn't make me less. It's just, that's our journey. And it's just like one tiny short period of time too. I think we get so caught up in it. And I was like, name one ancestor of yours from 100 years ago. Name one.
Yeah.
You know?
And you're like,
all things aside from potential, ancestry and disconnection
All
from your
that.
ancestry. But you wouldn't have anyway.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it. So we just we think this stuff is like so important.
And it's not.
And it's just,
But
and that's
it
not
can
meant to be
be.
depressing.
Right.
But you make impact. Can you make an impact? I want to help people. I'm a genuine person that loves people. But I used to be told that I'm like, oh, you're such a name dropper. You're such a social climber. And I was like, no, I legit will talk to a wall if you let me, because I find people fascinating.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you were talking about, the BDSM community. My husband and I just watched all these documentaries on cruise ships and all the different lifestyle cruises that exist. And I was like, oh my
People
gosh.
live on cruise ships, by the way.
And for a mere $1 million a year, you can establish residency on. Everyone's just gonna live a different life. Everyone, no two journeys are the same, and they're not gonna cross. No one's gonna care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just I'm just trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so coming up on the end, and I always tell people in all this recording shit, I'm like, I reserve the right to change my mind and also remember different aspects of my story as it comes. And this is just capturing a moment in time.
Yeah.
And, season 4, LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast is all about the dynamics of women. So what are the dynamics of women for you right now in a couple sentences?
Women are finally coming into their own in their own way. And I am here for it. I'm here to cheers for it. I'm here to rally for it. I'm here to support it. And they're doing it, not to, again, be cliche. And I don't think it's unapologetically. It's without disclaimer. Because a lot of times we put up disclaimers of, okay, well, the only reason I'm sharing this is because I just share it.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm doing that, just do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay that I do this because just whatever you're going to do that. And the more we celebrate that and uplift it, the more powerful we become. We can't be our own worst enemies
anymore.
No, we can't do it because that's the narrative. And then we have the chance to be like, no, you're a woman. You're great. I want to hear your story and listen. And then your turn will come too, But yeah, women are dope. And I'm excited. Even if it's just a foundation that we're laying down for things we'll never see because we're doing it for our future generation.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. So that is the dynamics of women. And I want to thank everybody that listened and rocked out with us and did all that stuff. Cried a little bit. The tear did not shed, so it's fine.
I held it in.
And even if it does, it's all good. So I want to thank everybody once again. And you know how this goes. Life is life-in all the time. And so as you're out there and moving around and moving and shaking and all that good stuff, thank you for being on. I appreciate your time. And for all my viewers, listeners, however you're doing this, always like and follow. You can go to at LRI Audio. That's at LRIAUDIO on Instagram. You can go to LaGinaRHarris.com. Find all the great stuff. This will be on YouTube, all the things.
Ooh.
Follow, share, do all that stuff. And as you're growing and moving through the world, always remember to tell your own story, be your own brand, live your truth, and stand in your moment.
All right, y'all, my name is Ana Rojas Bastidas. I am 40 years old. I hope y'all heard that truth and felt it within yourself. And that you take that and hold your head high and walk through the world knowing that you deserve to be here. You just listened to my story as I live my truth and stand in my moment on the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast, season 4, The Dynamics of Women.
All right, y'all. Peace.